thevoicebeforethevoid.net. When Foch met Germans to end war. How the enemy, beaten and fearing Reds, begged peace of Allies. From the New York Herald Tribune, read by The Voice Before the Void. The following account of the meeting of the Armistice Commission, which ended the World War, is taken from official sources and conveys an accurate picture of a momentous occasion. The daily slaughter of thousands of lives finished abruptly at 11 a.m. on November 11th, 1918, marking the end of the greatest war in history, and making the meeting of the Armistice Commission the most important historical event. The scene was laid in the middle of the forest of Compiègne, where Marshal Foch's train drew up opposite some old heavy gun sidings at 7 o'clock on the night of Thursday, November 7th, 1918. With Marshal Foch was General Weygand, his chief of staff, some staff officers and British representatives, the latter headed by Admiral Sir Rosslyn Wemyss. On another set of rails, about 100 yards away, was another similar train, and on the arrival of the German delegates, in the early hours of Friday morning, after their adventurous journey in automobiles across the fighting front, they were accommodated in this train. As soon as the German delegates arrived, a message was sent them to say that Marshal Foch would be ready to receive them at 9 a.m. the same day, Friday, November 8th, and exactly on time, in single file, Herr Erzberger heading, followed by Count Oberndorf, General von Winterfeldt, whose father was present at the Peace of Versailles in 1871, and Captain von Vanselow, made their appearance, and in addition there were 2 officer interpreters. In calm, even tones, Marshal Foch asked the Germans, "What is the object of your visit?" Herr Erzberger replied, "We have come to hear proposals for an armistice on land, sea, in the air, and in the colonies." "I have no proposals to make," answered Marshal Foch. Count Oberndorf then pulled a paper from his pocket and read a statement made by President Wilson concerning the famous 14 points. When he had finished, Marshal Foch said that if they desired an armistice, the terms would be read, and, the German delegates having stated that they wished hostilities to cease, General Weygand read out each article, the French interpreter repeating them in German. As soon as the reading of the terms was completed, the Germans, looking very dejected, asked permission to communicate with their government. Owing to the fact that the Germans had not brought any cipher, Marshal Foch refused to allow wireless to be used, and the terms thus made public property before perusal and consideration, and so Captain von Helldorf was dispatched to German headquarters at Spa with a copy. Independent discussions were continued during the afternoon in the conference car by the various German delegates, the chief matters necessarily being of a naval and military nature, and during these talks the fearful economic condition of Germany was laid bare. Besides foodstuffs, necessary material for naval and military equipment was in such short supply that the country was very literally at its last gasp. Another complaint of the Germans was against both the blockade and blacklist continuing after the armistice was signed, and it was obvious that both these weapons had hard hit their country. However, one of the most important concessions of the whole agreement was then added, namely, that the Allies would revictual Germany. Night fell on that fateful spot in the Compiègne forest, and looking out of the train, the fires of the bivouacs of the sentries and guards could be seen twinkling merrily, while away in the distance the boom of heavy guns told of the bloody work which was still continuing, after more than 4 fearful years, and, except for a written paper of agreements sent over by the Germans, Saturday passed without any visible program, awaiting the message of the German government. On Sunday, November 10th, from soon after 9 o'clock, several more discussions took place, and the most important was as to whether, owing to the internal political situation, the German government could carry out the terms of the armistice, if they did sign, especially concerning the surrender of the warships. It was suggested that the Allies should occupy Helgoland, but the German delegates did not think that it would be necessary. That evening a wireless message was received from the German government, ordering the signing of the armistice, but to add that Germany would become a prey to Bolshevism unless the Allies would undertake provisioning. There was further long discussion far into the night concerning Helgoland, as the French and British felt that there must be something to fall back upon, in case the Germans were unable to control their own men, the majority of whom were almost entirely out of hand. It was finally decided to add an extra stipulation to the agreement, recommending to the German government that the Allies occupy Helgoland if the government should be unable to enforce its commands, as if put in stronger terms a long delay would be occasioned, though having to refer the matter to Spa, should the Allies insist on the occupation in any event. At 2 a.m. on Monday, November 11th, all the delegates on both sides were assembled for a final conference. General Weygand read out the armistice agreement, article by article, and as each was read out, the French interpreter translated it into German, and discussion then proceeded until the final form of the article was mutually agreed upon, though, throughout, the Germans kept insisting that the terms were so harsh that they would be difficult of fulfillment. However, all the articles were finally read and discussed, and then Herr Erzberger stood up and read out a statement in German, stating that the government would carry out the terms as far as humanly possible. At 5:15 a.m., all the delegates signed the momentous document, Marshal Foch being the first to sign, followed by the British Admiral Wemyss. Orders were immediately issued all over the world for hostilities on land, at sea, and in the air to cease at 11 a.m. on that day, Monday, November 11th, 1918, for a period of 38 days. And it is now a matter of history how this period was later extended until the Peace of Versailles of 1919. Thus ended the most important historical event of all time.